Coming up on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we talk a little bit about the Javon Baker visit that has gone on for the last couple of days. It's kind of flown under the radar. We'll talk about that. We'll also discuss where the coaches are visiting now, how they're doing in recruiting, and also finally we'll talk about where does Ole Miss recruiting go from here. I'll give you an idea about that on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Of course, I want to say thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Please do me a favor, hit subscribe and the bell in YouTube. Give us a like if you would as well. Basically, you'll not only know that we're posted a video, you'll know what that video is about. The YouTube notification system is quite good, so sign up for that. So I want to talk to you a little bit about Javon Baker. He is finishing up his official visit. From all accounts, it seems to be going pretty well. All official visits do because they're designed to go well. If, all the things you like, they do that. It's a major recruiting pitch. If you want to know what that feels like, go visit your Army recruiter and let him know exactly how all these services automatically are the right thing for you and for what you want to do. So that's the closest thing to an official visit a regular person can do, but dealing with a military recruiter will give you the idea of the backbone of the official visit. But it's gone pretty well. I don't know. I think Ole Miss leads at this point. He has visited Florida earlier in the weekend. I think on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, he was in Florida, and then he went home. And there's a rumor of him maybe officially visiting Kentucky. So those three schools are going to be in the running for what happens here. Now, Isaiah Nayor, we're going to talk about him in the second segment. What's going on. Deion Smith's still out there. Cam Johnson is still out there. So receiver is not a desperate situation for Ole Miss recruiting at this point. But it would help if Javon Baker would get on board because he's a fairly special athlete and provides a skill set similar. I'm not calling him Amari Cooper. Not doing that. But he's kind of similar to Amari Cooper on the outside. He plays the outside receiver in a very unique, special way. And he is kind of a fast twitch athlete. He's not a burner, but he's fairly quick. And he's one of those phone booth type players. So it would be interesting to see. But his game is an outside receiver. That's what he does. And that can really help out. If you look at the outside receivers that Ole Miss have now, they have Jonathan Mingo. They have Brandon Buckhalter. They have Braylon Brown. I expect Braylon Brown to come out and really perform in year two of the offense. I expect Jonathan Mingo to be the dude in that room. Whenever people come in and have questions, he's going to be the man, and he's going to tell everybody what he expects. And that is what the receiving core looks like. Now, we've told you guys multiple times that this offense is really thriving whenever a tight end can be hit. We're going to talk about that in the second segment. And there's a slot receiver. So Jalen Knox, J.J. Henry, or even Jordan Watkins can come out and really perform, then Ole Miss has something offensively, especially with Zach Evans in the backfield. And it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. At that point, there's just weapons all around. You're looking for, honestly, a Ken Dorsey type of quarterback. Good. Doesn't make mistakes, gets the ball out to the playmakers. That's what we would be looking like under that situation. Fortunately, although, for Ole Miss, it doesn't necessarily look like that might be an option. Right now, confidence is still very, very high for Jackson Dart and Michael Trigg. And if you put them at tight end, at quarterback, along with a special wide receiver. They picked up a left tackle out of the portal yesterday when Mason Brooks committed. The SEC will always be a trench league. Understand that. We love to talk about skill players like wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, even tight ends to an extent. This will always be a trench league. So if you can improve your lines, It's always a good thing. And speaking of improving lines, coming up in the third segment, we're going to talk a little bit about where we go from here as who the next portal targets are. So, Javon Baker, good player. He, like I said, he's a phone booth player. He didn't necessarily fit what Bill O'Brien did. That's the reason he's transferring. He didn't fit what he did. Now, he's a low 4-star player. We've explained our theory over and over again that everybody sees a 5-star player. Everybody can identify a 5-star player. And that 5-star player can bounce between system and system and system more easily than a lower rated player. The players that don't pop out on the film, even a 4-star player, is a little bit less likely to be as adaptable to all systems as a top-level 5-star player. Well, Javon Baker is a low-level 4-star. He's a 250 guy. He's a 300 guy, depending on the rating. I think Rivals had him up at like 112, but Rivals rankings, one of these days we can discuss the deterioration of that in earnest. But because of that, whenever a player goes from Steve Sarkisian to Bill O'Brien, that may not look like a big jump. And you look at the offenses, the tempo's about the same, and the formations look pretty similar. But this offense was specifically created and formed around Bryce Young and Jamison Williams, and to some extent, John Mechie. And in knowing that you didn't fit and you got into the portal, because Mechie and Williams, they've transferred out. The Alabama offense is going to look a ton different next year, although they have a top running back coming out of the portal, just like Ole Miss. But it's going to look a little bit differently. Bryce Young's going to have to earn his keep, so to speak, although he would be probably the number one quarterback in the country coming back next year. Now, looking at Javon Baker, like I said, he's a phone booth guy. He's a guy that would make Luke Altmaier or Jackson Dart kind of a security blanket. He would probably be a favorite to win the other outside receiver job, with Braylon Brown with a chance to compete with him, and Brandon Buckhalter a chance to compete with him. Because one thing I've said a lot today, and this is something that everybody needs to know, no matter who is recruited, and this became a big deal because of basically somebody saying a player should take his ball and go home because it's not being handed to him. But every player that is being recruited is told, is completely open during recruiting, we are constantly trying to recruit you to the bench. You have to perform to keep your job. It's one of those things where competitors compete. And if you do not want to do that, that's a failed test. Because the first time a player comes in that is supposed to put you on the bench, your reaction at that point is a test. And if you decide to bail, you failed that test, and they're going to be okay with you walking away, because they don't want to hand the ball and hand a leadership position to somebody that would just walk away. Now, I get in the transfer portal, everybody has different ideas and different feelings, but competitors compete. Braylon Brown is not going to transfer because of Javon Baker. It's going to make both of them better. Iron sharpens iron. So, anyway, it's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. It makes it easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good. You'll want to eat it, unlike other protein bars that can be chalky or taste like a chemical spill. You want to eat healthy, it's just so boring. So by week 3, you're thinking, it's just not worth it. So here's an idea for the new year. Go to all your secret treat stashes at home, in the pantry, at the office, in the car, whatever, and throw out all the sugary, calorie-filled treats and replace them with Built Bars. So when you're craving a snack or treat, you can treat yourself to something that's healthy and tastes incredible. Even if you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good and is good for you. That way, when you enjoy a delicious Built Bar, you can almost count on it as a workout. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right. Now, we've talked about the Javon Baker visit and all that going on at Ole Miss right now. Let's talk a little bit about the coaches going out on the road, because yesterday Lane tweeted a picture from an international airport in Fort Worth, Texas. That is near Isaiah Neyor's house. And the rumor is Lane Kiffin was there when the Tennessee people showed up as well. So visits are happening after the official visit happens, just like an official visit for high school recruiting. It works kind of the same way, except there is no signing day. There is no end game, so to speak. So that is one player. Charlie Weiss Jr. yesterday, or Monday, was at a basketball game featuring Arch Manning. So they're already on the road 2023 recruiting. They've identified those guys, and they're going in to try and make an effort to bring those in for next year. Suntarine Perkins, a 2023 out of Raleigh, Mississippi. That was like 15 miles up the road from where I lived growing up. Has committed to Ole Miss as well. He's a good player. He's an athlete type, and a lot of big name schools are in on him, and he's already committed to Ole Miss. So that is good to know. Now, the rumor is, and like I said, we don't play the telephone game. So whenever you hear rumors, heard, hearing, sources say, or anything like that's completely anonymous, take it with a grain of salt. Don't get any hopes up off of it, because right now they're hitting at about a 10% rate, and that's fine. That's just the nature of the media in today's world. But the rumor is that tonight Lane Kiffin will be in Utah visiting Jackson Dart. The rumor also is Oklahoma was already in Utah visiting Jackson Dart. Now, with what's going on with them, people try to guess whenever their decision is going to make. They see that Ole Miss has a timetable to where he needs to be completely registered and in class by the 31st. And I think in Oklahoma, the late registration date, with permission of a teacher, starts January 21st. So that's 3 days away. So keep that in mind as well. But they're going to try and close the deal tonight. Everybody is trying to close the deal. The visits, I mean, like I said, all visits are designed to go well. They want you to enjoy yourself. So it's built around the things you enjoy. And if you have somebody like John David Baker, who's done this before, because he recruited both of them, he already knew the answer to the questions of how to set that up. So if you got a certain player that's a certain way, the host might be picked that matches that personality. Two people that might get along. Not somebody that's just necessarily a great recruiter, but they want to match that personality first and foremost. And because of that, the official visits are almost always good. Just almost always good. And it's getting close. Like the 31st is the drop ad date for Ole Miss, and then with the teacher's approval, you can go in after the 21st. So it's getting close. And what I think is going to happen, they have a decision to make probably by the weekend. It's okay if you remember you missed the first week of class. It doesn't really necessarily matter if you go. You got syllabus day, the first one, so that's the Wednesday class. So in reality, all you would miss is Friday. Nothing's going on Friday. That's going to be a beginning, getting to know each other session. Wednesday, syllabus day. Tuesday, syllabus day. So you're missing your Thursday classes and your Friday classes. Now, keep this in mind. The template's already there for what they need to register. It's a button push at this point. They know what's going on. It's just absolutely a button push. We'll get you in there. You can change it around once you do. You don't have much time to drop an ad, but get an idea of what you want to do. That's where they are at this point. Same thing goes with Michael Trigg. Same thing goes with future people, but also players like Javon Baker if he decides he wants to get in. That's the reason he can take an official visit this week. He can make a decision by the weekend. He can go ahead and plan to enroll. It's not that long of a drive from Tuscaloosa to Oxford. You can get there in a couple hours. So you can make that move in a day. So one of the main things they do with these transfers is making sure people are here to essentially show them around, do things that they can't do. So you have players like Nick Broker coming back. He's going to be rooming with Mason Brooks. That helps them whenever they live off campus and everything, because then all you have to do is move your stuff into a certain area, into a certain place. Go about class, practice, workouts, things like that. Do 6 months and boom, you're gone. So it is pretty imperative the coaches go out and recruit really hard. Like I said, they're doing a lot of 2023 work right now. They're putting a finishing touches on the transfer portal as we speak for 2023. Well, I don't want to say finishing touches, but as far as the full speed ahead with all the recruiting that's going on, they're doing that. Because remember, the early signing day is kind of become for high school kids. The rest of the recruiting cycle becomes the transfer portal. And then at some point in February, early to mid-February, there's going to be the first junior day. And they're going to invite all these big-name players to come show up for these junior days. Now, this is what's important to remember. If you're having a great season like Ole Miss had this year at 10-2 in the Sugar Bowl, it doesn't affect this year. That's a big misconception. But you recruit off the year previous. So the class of 2023, it will affect. And because of that, you'll be able to see much more big-name players come in the high school class. I don't think Ole Miss is going to do anything different. The master plan is working. It may not be necessarily media-friendly to not have a big event, because Rivals, 247, and On3 used to be National Signing Day was an event. All the TVs had announcements on. I mean, as little as like 5 years ago. The early signing day killed that. And they'll still do some events, and they'll still do whatever they need to do. But the late signing day is becoming the time of the portal. And I love the portal. I love the Wild West aspect of the portal. I love that it's never ending. And I'm like, as long as it's done by June 30th, I mean, it's pretty great. It's bad for the media. It's probably bad for coaches making $250,000 plus a year at the D1 level to do roster stuff. But it is great for the average fan, because I do think that it gives you a little bit more drama the way it's situated now. Because in recruiting, everybody goes all in. Like Ole Miss went all in with Dillon Gabriel. It's like, oh, no. And then they're talking about missing, and this is terrible, and this looks horrible for Ole Miss football, and what's going on with Ole Miss football. And then all of a sudden, Jackson Dart comes in. And if you would have gotten Dillon Gabriel, which Ole Miss would have taken him, I'm not saying he wouldn't. If they would have gotten him there, they would not be in the race for Jackson Dart. It's just very, very interesting. I love it. Maybe it's the fact that I worked at Rivals for 10 years and I saw the event-driven signing day, but the amount of drama every week. Now, it's going to slow down after classes start. I understand that. And you're going to move on to 2023s in the spring. But man, it's a whole lot of fun, and it's probably more fun than the high school recruiting at this point. I love the fact that they keep a circle small, and yeah, it's really cool. Anyway, there it is, the putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours, but on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're still relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software? To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite. For the new year, NetSuite has a new financing program ready for those to upgrade to netsuite.com/locked. That's, yeah, netsuite.com/locked. Head to netsuite.com/locked for this special one-of-a-kind financing offer on the number one financial system for growing businesses. That's netsuite.com/locked. I kept wanting to say locked on, and it was difficult. So tune in for that. These guys have a great thing. They're the number one cloud financial system that powers your growth, and they have visibility to control your financials, inventory, and they can do a little bit of everything. So that's netsuite.com/. All right, so we've gone over what's going on with Javon Baker, and we've talked a little bit about what's going on with the coaches right now. Well, what is the future? What does that hold for Ole Miss football with the portal going on? And I think that it's fairly important to realize that they're not done, and they won't be done until June. Understand that. If there's an opportunity for them, they're going to take it. And I love that these people are early adopters. That makes everything so good, because if they were setting their ways, it would be a tough slog. It legitimately would. But people thinking that you have to have dominant high school classes, that is so old world thinking. But now you have the opportunity to bring in some ready-made athletes that have been in a college strength and conditioning program for some cases 2 years, and you can get them for 2 years. It's like a JUCO plus player that you can sign. So I think Ole Miss is going to sign a wide receiver or two. I think Ole Miss is going to sign a defensive lineman. I think Ole Miss is going to try to get another linebacker. I think they're done in the secondary. And they might try to get an offensive lineman if they can find a center. If he pops up and is somebody that they might be interested in, yes, they might try to do it. Now, the big curious thing going on that you want to keep an eye on is J.J. Pegues. If you remember J.J. Pegues, he played at Oxford High School. Won a state championship there, basically running the Wildcat, and at 300 pounds playing quarterback. Now, when I was in high school, we actually had a guy that weighed about 300 pounds playing quarterback against us as well for, I think it was for Port Gibson, or maybe it was Stone County. I think it was Stone County. And that was the team that had Artie Moore, and like I'm dating myself, pretty good, but they were a pretty good football team, and so were we. And seeing J.J. Pegues kind of do that reminded me of what they did back there at Stone County back in the days. Wide receiver Deion Smith is still in the portal. He has academic work. Once it gets done, he'll probably show up on campus. If Cam Johnson from Vanderbilt is going to visit this weekend, supposedly, good player. If you remember correctly, he was the number one guy of last year's Vandy team, not the Clark Lee ones, the Derek Mason Vandy team. And he did a good job with Ken Seals, and they were somewhat of a relevant pair together. At linebacker, I've got nobody, but somebody might pop up. Like I said, at center, they're waiting to see if somebody might pop up. If you want the telephone game and if you want the rumors and all of that, I would direct you to the Ole Miss Spirit and On3 Sports, because these guys, they do a fantastic job with that. We handle mainly the perspective of everything going around the Ole Miss sports bubble. That includes media, that includes everything. That can be the fan base. But anything inside that Ole Miss sports bubble is fair game. And because of that, sometimes we'll get into some interesting things. Like a beat reporter saying a quarterback should transfer because Ole Miss brought in another class. That's the reason we talked about whenever you pitch somebody in recruiting, you tell them that you are going to try and over-recruit them. You're going to try to recruit them to the bench. And how they react to it is an absolute test. If they fail, you want them gone, honestly. So if they want to transfer and they decide they want to transfer just because you're recruiting him, you probably want them to go on to begin with because they failed that test. So demand accountability from your press. Demand that they be right. Don't demand good news. Just demand that they're right, that what they're saying is true. Because right now they have about a 10% hit rate. So it is what it is. But thank you very much for tuning in today. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Tomorrow we will continue to talk. We will talk, about Missouri and the aftermath of that. We'll talk about this weekend's game a little bit. And we will continue with the visits as we are on Jackson Dart and Michael Trigg watch. So we will pay attention to that. So now make the your second listen, Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. I do want to say thank you for everybody for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun today. Tune in tomorrow. We'll do it again. Until then, hotty toddy.